interested in seeing what it was, but according to the story, in 2018, Donald Trump, who was at that time president of the United States, was so upset about my jokes that I made about him, he directed his staffers at the White House to call Disney to tell them to rein me in. The report says at least 2 calls were made from the Trump White House to, quote, convey the president's anger regarding Kimmel's monologues and jabs. In other words, President Karen demanded to speak to my manager.
I'm not supposed to rely on a big 5 accounting firm, like one of the biggest accounting firms in the world. I can pay them millions of dollars. I rely on them to do accounting, but I'm supposed to know more than them.
Donald Trump Jr. just called the cops on Jimmy Kimmel. Yes, seriously, why? Because Jimmy did what he always does. Roasted the Trumps so hard, even their spray tans started to peel. One joke, a few secrets revealed, and suddenly Don Jr. was dialing 911 like he'd been the victim of a late-night assault. What did Kimmel say that sent Jr. into a full-blown meltdown? Stay tuned, this is way more than just hurt feelings. It's a full-blown comedy crime scene.
Embarrassing. He's on the stand. He's testifying in this $250 million fraud trial, and he has to compliment. He said his father is an artist with real estate. Yeah, he's an artist with. He's Vincent Van Gogh to jail with real estate. Is what he is. He also boasted that his dad is the father of hotel gyms. He said maybe someone put a gym in a building somewhere, but no one did it at the scale of my father. He's saying that his father, the father of the hotel gym, is a guy who's never stepped inside one.
Okay, so apparently calling 911 because your feelings got hurt is a thing now. At least if you're Donald Trump Jr. Yes, Donnie Jr., the guy who posts more unhinged rants per capita than your conspiracy-loving uncle. He reportedly called the actual police over a joke from a late-night host on television. Welcome to America, where billionaires are fragile, and satire is apparently a felony if it lands too hard.
Then posted that Elon was wearing thin. He asked him to leave, and he went crazy. Trump threatened to terminate Musk's government contracts, and then Elon Musk went absolutely nuclear. He tweeted, let's put that up on the big screen. Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein file.
I'm fine with all the other lists. As long as I'm not on the Epstein list, we're good, right? How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light? I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right, folks? It's almost like they're trying to protect those.
Wait a second, loving the video? Let's make it official. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more exciting content because the best is yet to come. Now, let's get back to the story. It all started with Jimmy Kimmel doing what he does best, turning the Trump family's absurdity into late-night comedy gold. This time, though, he hit a nerve. Not just any nerve, but the nerve. Because apparently, in the land of spray tans and nepotism, the truth delivered with a punchline is considered a call to arms, or in this case, a call to the cops.
On what he called the ultimate ultimatum, which is kind of like the final finale, but scarier. He enjoys making threats, and he loves attaching them to timelines, too.
I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks. It's always 2 weeks. Always 2 weeks. For a guy whose catchphrase was "you're fired," no one has ever given more 2 weeks notice.
See, Kimmel didn't just poke fun at Don Jr.'s latest attempt to cosplay as a political thought leader. No, he went further. He aired out what some are calling a laundry list of Trump family secrets. The kind that reek of tax fraud, backdoor deals, and daddy's disapproval. And Don Jr. reacted like someone had just posted his browser history on the big screen in Times Square.
The summer solstice used to be the longest day of the year, but that's one of the nice things about Trump being president. Now every day is the longest day of the year.
I'm just proud of the toughest person I've ever met in my entire life for having the backbone and fortitude to go through this whole mess, as uncomfortable as it's been. And I'm proud to have stood there every single second by his side in that freezing cold courtroom. He's an inspiration to me every single day. and he'll be vindicated.
In other words, Daddy, I was there, Don Jr. wasn't. He just showed up.
Don Jr. wasn't even prepared. He just showed up for the joke itself. It wasn't unusually harsh, but it was precise, surgical, the comedic equivalent of threading a needle while blindfolded, drunk, and riding a unicycle, and still landing a bullseye. Kimmel laid out a few inconvenient truths wrapped in sarcasm, exposing everything from Don Jr.'s questionable business instincts to his over-the-top social media posturing, all while tossing in a jab at the Trump brand's steady tumble into parody.
I'm here with your favorite president. We're cranking out a couple mean tweets at the courthouse. Why don't you read that last one? Because I think it's pretty
Well,
epic.
I think I'm going to put it out instead of reading it, but I know my son's doing very well on social media. I'm proud of him.
Stay tuned. It'll be a doozy.
Yeah, that's as close to a hug as Don Jr. is ever going to get from his father.
Remember the Academy Awards? I said how he's the worst host in the history of the Academy Awards, and this stupid guy goes up, and just before the Best Picture of the Year, the show is almost over. They're waiting for the Best Picture of the Year. He gets up and he says, and his wife said, please don't do it. Please, darling, don't go out. His manager said, don't do it. I have to do it. He goes out and reads my truth to the entire audience right before the best prime time, the Best Picture. And it said basically, he is the worst host in the history. He reads the whole thing. And then I think he said something like, ha, 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 he thinks he bothers me, or some crap like that. I said, he's one of the dumbest human beings ever. He should have listened to his wife. What a dope.
Now, most public figures would let it slide, maybe issue a sassy clapback on social media. But Don Jr., he went full Broadway, apparently convinced he was the victim of a criminal act. He reportedly dialed 911 like he was in the middle of an actual emergency, and not, you know, the punchline of a late-night segment. Police sources say they were contacted by someone claiming to be threatened, slandered, or whatever legal-sounding buzzword Jr. could pull from his vocabulary of courtroom TV. The officers, no doubt expecting a robbery, or maybe even a squirrel in a hot tub, instead got a guy babbling about comedy as character assassination. Imagine being that cop. But here's the kicker. This wasn't even the first time Don Jr. has completely unraveled over jokes before. Like the time he subtweeted a late-night monologue, behaving like a high school drama queen dumped at prom. He has a long, proud history of acting like satire is sabotage. He calls himself a free speech warrior, but only when that speech involves memes about gas stoves or Hunter Biden. The minute the joke's on him, he morphs into a Victorian widow, fainting on a chaise lounge.
Secretary of Health and Human Sacrifice, RFK Jr., appeared with President Trump at the White House today to unveil his report on chronic disease that warns about the toxins found in ultra-processed foods like fried chicken, fast food burgers and fries, pepperoni pizza, soft drinks, ice cream bars, and so on. And Trump sat right next to him listening to all this. Listen, Trump's favorite food is toxins. His blood type is honey mustard. He's not gonna, I'm glad RFK's working on this. None of it is gonna get done. When Trump finally figures out he's trying to take away his Doritos, mark my words, Bobby.
And let's be honest, this meltdown wasn't really about the joke. It was about the truth buried inside it. While Kimmel was cracking wise, he also nudged the curtain open on some very real questions. How exactly does Don Jr. make his money? Why do so many of his ventures collapse faster than a Jenga tower in a wind tunnel? And why does he insist on posting videos that look like they were filmed in a Bass Pro Shops parking lot during a Red Bull overdose? When Kimmel joked about Don Jr. being the Fredo of the Trump dynasty, he wasn't just roasting, he was summarizing what millions already suspect. Don Jr. is the heir to a brand built on bluster, but lacking the actual chops to keep the empire afloat. The cops, in true cop fashion, reportedly took the call with exactly the seriousness it deserved, which is to say, none. They filed it under, yeah, okay, and probably spent the next 10 minutes laughing in the squad car.
Jane Goodall devoted a big chunk of her life to studying chimpanzees, wild chimpanzees. She spent years in the jungle observing them, learning about them. And in many ways, I feel like I've been doing similar work over the past 8 years, observing Donald Trump. No offense to the chimpanzees, but... And after a while, I don't know how long exactly, but Dr. Goodall spent most of her time watching them from a distance, began to interact with her fellow primates, and last night, that happened to me too. Because when Donald Trump gave a crowd in Indiana, Pennsylvania, yet another review of my
Because unless Kimmel sent a ravenous pack of joke-writing hyenas to Don Jr.'s house, there was no crime. Still, Don Jr. doubled down. He began posting about it online, insisting that comedians are a danger to the public and that media bias is the real problem. That's right. When you're a Trump, the issue isn't what you did, it's that someone noticed. And as this whole saga exploded, Twitter did what Twitter does best. It turned the meltdown into memes. Someone photoshopped Don Jr. wearing a bike helmet while calling the cops from a playpen. Another showed him hiding under a MAGA blanket labeled Comedian Trauma Response Unit. Meanwhile, Kimmel didn't just move on. Now here's the delicious irony. The Trump crowd constantly screams about cancel culture, yet the second a comedian says something that stings, they try to cancel him. It's almost like their version of free speech only works one way. You can mock the weak, the marginalized, and the vulnerable, but don't you dare come for the golden boys of grift. Let's not forget, this is the same guy who built an entire brand off his father's image. Don Jr. has never had to work a normal job, pay rent, or face consequences. His existence is a guided tour through nepotism, and yet here he is, trying to weaponize law enforcement because someone made fun of him on TV. That's not strength, that's cosplay weakness, with a side of whining.
That's sweet. He's confusing me with one of his sons again. Wow, do you think he's flirting with me? What is this? When I die, I would like that to be the clip they play at the Emmys in memoriam montage. He even worked my wife in there. Should I be worried that Trump has mentioned my wife more times at his rallies this year than his own? I also want to point out the Oscars were more than 6 months ago. He's still stewing over this joke. He keeps bringing it up, which I don't mind at all. In fact, I love it. I just wish he would quote it correctly. I didn't say, ha, 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 he thinks he bothers me. What I said was this.
Well, I just got a review, and has there ever been a worse host than Jimmy Kimmel at the Oscars?
And while we're at it, let's talk about the so-called dirty secrets Jimmy Kimmel exposed. No, they weren't nuclear codes or state secrets. They were the everyday scandals that cling to the Trump name like glitter after a failed project. Shady business ventures, charity misuse, allegations, suspicious finances, and an ego so inflated it practically needs its own zip code. The real secret Don Jr. is terrified of. People are laughing at him instead of with him. Deep down, the Trump mystique is cracking like a casino mirror. Kimmel turned it into a national headline, proving once again that when you live in a house of cards, even a punchline can feel like a hurricane. And now we're watching the Streisand effect play out in real time. The more Don Jr. tries to bury the moment, the more the internet digs it up, dresses it in clown shoes, and parades it around the block. Late night shows are doing follow-ups, TikToks are reenacting the call, and even The Onion is probably kicking themselves for not writing it first.
About me, I hate spring forward so much, and this, to me, this is Donald Trump's big opportunity because we woke up this morning an hour before we usually do, and I have the kids on board now. My daughter hates daylight saving time. My son hates daylight saving time. I'm a longtime hater of daylight saving time, and my wife hates hearing us complain about how much we hate daylight saving time. So there's a lot of hate flowing through the house, and here in California, we voted, back in 2018, we voted to get rid of this. And we thought we did. 60% of voters said no more. And yet, 6-7 years later, here we are, dragging our asses out of bed again. Same time, we have Donald Trump firing air traffic controllers, screwing up our national parks, threatening to annex Canada, focusing on all these dumb things, and not just dumb.
It's no secret. The Trump family has the emotional durability of a wet tissue in a hurricane. Comedy, especially when it's accurate, is their kryptonite. Donald Sr. still hasn't recovered from a roast that happened before Twitter even had a GIF button. Remember the White House Correspondents' Dinner? Obama torched him like a backyard bonfire, and Trump sulked for years, plotting revenge like a Bond villain whose only gadgets were spray tan and Saturday Night Live. Let Alec Baldwin so much as raise an eyebrow, and Trump would rage tweet through half a cheeseburger. Don Jr. inherited that same fragile DNA, but with extra Wi-Fi. To the Trumps, jokes aren't jokes. They're tactical strikes because deep down, they know something terrifying. Jokes stick. They cut through the branding, the slogans, the Make America, whatever, and leave a bruise that PR can't spin away.
Never taking his kids to school. He thinks it's dark at 7:45. Donald Trump would have mailed Eric to school in a box if he could have.
It's a little bit one way, but it's very much a 50-50 issue. And It's something I can do, but a lot of people like it one way, a lot of people like it the other way. It's very even.
No, it is not very even. It's very odd, in fact, and it's not 50-50. I guarantee you that, with the possible exception of those lunatics who get up at 5 a.m. to have alone time and watch the sun come up, if you did a poll this morning when that alarm went off an hour earlier than usual, it would have been 98-2 in favor of getting rid of daylight saving. Trump could finally do one thing to make almost everyone in this country happy.
What was it about Kimmel's joke that sent Don Jr. reaching for his phone to dial the comedy police? Was it just funny? No, it was because it hit a nerve, possibly several. Kimmel didn't just make fun of the hair, the sniffles, or the weird obsession with golden furniture. He peeled back the curtain. The joke implied something deeper, maybe a nod to Trump Organization's dodgy finances, or the elephant in the courtroom, those ongoing investigations that seem to follow the family like unpaid interns. And when a joke starts sounding too much like an indictment, panic sets in, a ticking clock at Mar-a-Lago. Or maybe, just maybe, this was damage control disguised as indignation, a MAGA brand PR stunt in reverse. Don Jr. calls the cops, not because he thinks Kimmel broke the law, but because he knows something else might break soon and distract the base. Flip the narrative, paint comedians as villains, and Trump world as the victims of a leftist late-night witch hunt. If he can delegitimize the mockery, maybe he can muffle the truth.
Basically, his message last night, in a nutshell, was, we won a completely fraudulent election.
I'll be meeting with the EU on Sunday, and we'll be working on a deal. We'll see if we make a deal. Ursula will be here, highly respected woman, so we look forward to that.
He amplified it. Enter the Streisand effect, the internet's favorite boomerang. Try to bury a joke and it shows up on TikTok, gets remixed into a sea shanty, and ends up tattooed on a protester's calf. If Don Jr. had just let it go, it might have faded by morning. Instead, he made it the joke of the week. Kimmel didn't need to go viral. Don Jr. gift wrapped it and sent it express, which leaves us with one final absurd image: a grown man, son of a former president, calling emergency services because a comedian made fun of his family. If that's the reaction to a monologue, imagine what would happen if someone really got under their skin. What if someone joked about Trump's taxes, his loans, or the truth about that mysterious McDonald's obsession? This is the level of meltdown over one punchline. Buckle up, but not because of what Kimmel said. It's because Don Jr. walked right into the setup, triggered the trap, and then begged the cops to arrest the guy holding the whoopee cushion.
Time you'd want to be president of the United States. I mentioned last night, Trump, who is the president, left the G7 conference a full day early. The other world leaders assumed he left to work on a ceasefire in the Middle East, but Trump denied that. He said it has nothing to do with the ceasefire, much bigger than that. And now, today, we know what it was he was working on. He posted this: "It is my great honor to announce that I will be putting up 2 beautiful flagpoles on both sides of the White House. It is a gift from me. These are the most magnificent poles made. They are tall, tapered, rust-proof, rope inside the pole, and of the highest quality. Hopefully they will proudly stand at both sides of the White House for many years to come." Wow. Tall, tapered, rust-proof flagpole. You know he must love him because
this whole circus is just another reminder that the Trump family doesn't do well with scrutiny. They prefer controlled environments, rallies, Fox interviews, carefully edited videos from undisclosed hunting cabins. Toss them into an uncontrolled setting, say a comedian armed with facts and a studio audience, and suddenly they're flailing like they just got hit with a pie and a subpoena at the same time. What makes it even more hilarious is that Don Jr. truly believed he could turn this into a moment of outrage that people would side with him. But when a powerful man calls 911 over a joke, he's not protecting free speech, he's running from it. So where does that leave us? With a very public reminder that satire is powerful, that comedy exposes truths polite society won't say aloud.
Take care of our farmers.
farmers. Is he under the impression they're growing these flagpoles? Because what a jerk. I like the idea that first of all, he just assumes the workers might be undocumented because some of them aren't white, and then says they'll be checking you and destroying your lives. There is no they checking them. There is you checking them. You are the one rounding people up and destroying their lives, not the reporters.
And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do to a family obsessed with image is laugh. Don Jr. wanted to silence Kimmel. What he did instead was put a spotlight on everything he was trying to hide. In doing so, he handed late night TV enough material to last through the next election cycle. So if you're keeping score, Kimmel told a joke. Don Jr. called the cops. America grabbed popcorn. And irony? Irony filed a restraining order against the Trump family. The best part? This probably isn't even the last time it'll happen. Because as long as Don Jr. keeps taking himself so seriously, the world will never stop laughing.